I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, an illegal alien has now been convicted of killing Washington State Patrol Trooper Christopher Gadd, but as we'll find out, his sentence will be far from justice. Plus, Governor Bob Ferguson orders the Washington State Patrol to prostrate itself after accidentally interfering with a pride flag raising at the state capitol. And Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell looks quite uncomfortable when confronted with questions about his vilification of peaceful Christians. That and much more coming up today on Undivided. We're still running a promo for the next week that will give you 30% off a year of Undivided. Get access to all our subscriber exclusives, including our Sunday show, Sundays with Subscribers. Just go to patreon.com/undivided. That's patreon.com/undivided and type in the promo code 300. That's the number 300 for 30% off. Hello and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. I'm Brandi Kruse. A verdict was reached very quickly in the case against Raul Benitez Santana yesterday. So in the morning, the jury was sent the case. Of course, Benitez Santana is the illegal alien who killed Washington State Patrol Trooper Christopher Gadd last year. He was driving more than 100 miles per hour, high and drunk. Ended up smashing into the back of Trooper Gadd's vehicle, killing him, a father to a 2-year-old daughter, a relatively new husband, and of course someone who was relatively new to the Washington State Patrol. And this was an easy verdict to reach. I mean, I guess in Washington State, you never know until it's done. And certainly it's justice in the sense that this guy's not going to get away with it. You know, this became national news in part because of his immigration status, but I would argue because he killed a state trooper. And, you know, the defense team was pulling out all the stops to try to, one, get the case dismissed because of his immigration status. I mean, they essentially argued that we couldn't find a jury that we couldn't possibly find a jury that could be fair and impartial because, you know, everyone's racist against people who are in the country illegally. And because of his brown skin, we can't possibly seat an impartial jury. But the case went to the jury just before lunch. I think it took them 2 hours to convict Raul Benitez Santana on vehicular assault and vehicular homicide. You know, I just want to, though, you know, set people's expectations here because we talk about justice in the traditional sense. First of all, there's no justice because you're not going to be able to bring Trooper Gadd back to his family and to his loved ones. But also, people have to realize the laws around vehicular homicide are incredibly lax. It's not treated like a homicide. It's treated like an accident. I mean, he's not going to prison for the rest of his life. I would be shocked if he gets more than 10 years in prison. Now, Benitez Santana does have some criminal history already in the state of Washington, which would factor into his offender score because, of course, we live in a sanctuary state. I mean, he never should have been in the state to begin with because he had previous interactions with law enforcement that if we were living in a sane state under sane times, he would have been deported back to Mexico. I mean, he beat his girlfriend. This was not even that long ago. It was in 2019. He was sentenced to 2 years probation. He had to undergo behavioral therapy treatment. He broke his girlfriend's nose during an assault. She had to go to the hospital for it. He was charged with assault in the second degree. And then also he had a previous, back in 2013, interaction with law enforcement. He was convicted of driving with a suspended or revoked license. He also had misdemeanor marijuana possession from 2013. And then he had another 2014 charge of driving while his license was suspended or revoked. So this is someone who on multiple occasions should have been removed from the country because if we weren't a sanctuary state, local law enforcement would have alerted ICE. ICE would have deported him. He wouldn't have been here driving more than 100 miles an hour down the side of the road, high and drunk, smashing into the back of Trooper Gadd's vehicle while Trooper Gadd was on a patrol for impaired drivers. So I just want to steel you guys to that. The sentencing in this case is going to be July 2nd at 1 p.m. And people are going to be disappointed with the outcome of it. I don't understand why we are so lax on people who commit vehicular assault or vehicular homicide. But again, the law, because it's not, they don't treat it as intentional in the sense of like, I'm going out to kill someone today. And I get it. You know, it's not a premeditated murder, But the result is the same. I mean, he's at the bar drinking, he's smoking weed, he goes out, and you should know, any person should know that if you do that, you have the potential to drive recklessly and to kill someone. So it's going to be disappointing when the sentence comes down. So let's just steel ourselves for that now. So that happens yesterday. And I just have to show you the Seattle Times headline, as if we don't know the Seattle Times is a total lost cause. And when this story was reported on, by the way, what was the key detail at the time when this happened that the Seattle Times left out, that conservative media was the only ones to really report on? The fact that he was in the country illegally. Here's, I swear to God, the tweet from the Seattle Times yesterday. A Snohomish County jury found a Linwood man guilty in a high-speed crash on Interstate 5 that killed Washington State Patrol Trooper Christopher Gadd. The headline of the underlying story, Washington man found guilty of vehicular homicide in state trooper's death. No, he's not a Linwood man. He's not a Washington man. He's an illegal alien from Mexico who shouldn't be in our country and shouldn't have been in our state. It just waters it down. It's the exact same as that gang member who they were calling a Maryland father? Mm-hmm. You know, an MS-13 gang member? Oh, Maryland father. They water it down intentionally. If you think for 1 second, let's say I went to Mexico and I was driving drunk and I hit and killed a Mexican citizen or a Mexican police officer. Do you think they'd say, Guadalajara woman? No, they'd say, American woman came here, killed a member of law enforcement. In no other country the media would do this. No other country would the media do this. We just adopt him as a Linwood man, Washington State man. The Seattle Times, I don't know what to do about the Times anymore. It drives me nuts because a lot of people read it for news and information. And if you're reading the Seattle Times, you might have no freaking idea that this is an illegal alien. Because all their original reporting just completely bypassed it, even though it was public information very shortly after the crash happened. Oh, we see this all the time. What did they just do with the guy who firebombed the peaceful Jewish gathering in Boulder, Colorado? They called him, was it the Times or the Washington Post, a El Paso County man. No, he was an illegal Egyptian national who committed an act of terror on American soil. He's not an El Paso County man. Benito Santana isn't a Linwood man. The MS-13 gang member isn't a Maryland father. The left has lost its mind and the media has lost its mind. And they want to hide the reality of how dangerous our nation's immigration policies have been and how we are letting dangerous people into our communities. And look, do American citizens kill cops? Yes, unfortunately they do. Do American citizens drive drunk and high? Yes, unfortunately they do. Do American citizens commit vehicular assault and vehicular homicide? Yes, they do. I'm not saying that only happens when illegals do it. But that is a key part of the story. And to act as if it has no relevance is insane to me. How can you be taken seriously as a news organization? So some good news after all the legal wrangling. I'm glad at least the jury has convicted this illegal alien of killing a Washington State Patrol trooper. He's not going to get the sentence that he deserves. I'll also say, in another thing I want to just put on everyone's radar, not to depress the hell out of you over this. I mean, it's already depressing, obviously. But so ICE is going to let him serve his prison sentence here, as they should, right? Because if he's deported now, he could just come right back in and bypass a prison sentence? That makes no sense. So let's say it's 7 years. That's going to be my guess. 7 years he's going to get for killing a state trooper. And then the idea would be that ICE would take him into custody after he serves his sentence in a state prison, and they'd deport him back to Mexico. Okay, so let's say it's 7 years from now. Donald Trump's not going to be in office anymore. The question is, who's the president going to be then? What is ICE going to feel empowered and be able to do? Are we still going to be living in a sanctuary state? Are we going to have a Democratic president who doesn't want ICE rounding up people who are in the country illegally and sending them back to their home countries? So I would say even TBD whether Raul Benitez Santana will ever be deported back to Mexico. You know how many illegal aliens have served time in our state prison system, gotten out and went right back into our communities and not been deported to their home countries? It happens all the time because we're a sanctuary state and because there is no information sharing. So I'd like to believe that in 7 years, that's not going to be different. I'd like to believe that ICE at the time is going to be monitoring this particular illegal alien so they know the exact time and the exact day that he's going to get out of prison. But we can't guarantee that. So 7 years, take some time off for good behavior, maybe 5. And this guy could be right back out on the streets committing crimes in our state, illegally present here, as he has for the last 15 years. Because we have reached peak insanity. Just wild stuff. Speaking of the State Patrol, I don't even know who to be mad at for this. So there was a graduating class from Trooper Basic. So a new academy class of Washington State troopers, about to, start their careers protecting and serving the people of Washington State. These are like young kids. I mean, these are 20-somethings. Looking at them, I'm like, oh my gosh, they look so young, But what a cool day for them. They went through, how hard basic is for them in the Trooper Training Academy. They made it through, they made the cut. And so they get all these classes, they get their big graduation day at the Washington State Capitol, where they get a march into the Capitol, and then they're in the big rotunda, big, beautiful marbled area, and they get to graduate. And and I've watched these before, and it's just such a cool day for them, and I think, a big accomplishment for all of these young men and women. So yesterday, one of these graduation ceremonies is happening. And I kid you not, this is how it started.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. If you would please take your places, we will begin the graduation ceremony for the 120th Trooper Basic Training Class and the 3rd and 4th Lateral Trooper Training Classes. We are glad everyone is here today, and as some of you may know, while our cadets were marching into the Capitol earlier today, our route unfortunately and regrettably interfered with the annual raising of the pride flag in front of the building.
Gotta be kidding me.
I'd like to apologize to anyone in attendance of either event who was made uncomfortable or inconvenienced due to this situation, and assure you there was no intent to offend or distract from the flag raising.
Oh my God.
The error was ours, and we apologize.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Are you effing kidding me? All of the work, not to mention the fact that these young men and women have made a conscious decision to serve their communities, to put their lives on the line, protecting and defending the people of Washington State in a climate and an environment that is as hostile toward them as this one is. All their hard work pays off. They have their big graduation day at the state capitol, the governor in attendance. And that day starts, that ceremony starts with the State Patrol prostrating itself by apologizing for their ceremony, interfering with the raising of the pride flag. Are you fucking kidding me? Outside the state capitol.
It's not even the pride flag. It's the progress flag.
The trans. Yeah, it's like a trans, and then it's got some circle in it that's like
progress.
Good God. Are you kidding me? So let me just set this up for you. I'll paint the picture for you. So outside, they're raising the progress flag, which Governor Bob Ferguson attended. More on that in a moment. And they've got, the gay rights and trans rights activists and stuff gathered, and they're all taking turns raising the progress flag, which shouldn't even be a thing. We shouldn't be raising a flag about sexual orientation above any sort of government building. It shouldn't even be a thing. And then at the same time, you've got young men and women who are going to put their lives on the line for our state, graduating in a ceremony inside the state capitol. So apparently what happened is they march into the state capitol. I don't know whose lines got crossed, but they ended up marching in formation through, essentially, the pride flag raising. And oh my gosh, the alphabet mob lost its mind. They were fearful, they said. They felt threatened they said. They felt like it was done intentionally to disrupt and to scare them. I'm not kidding. Seattle Gay News reported on this. Washington State Patrol graduates marched through Progress pride flag raising ceremony, sparking concerns of disrespectful behavior. Oh my God. So there's this woman, Lisa Keating, the director of the Washington State LGBTQ Commission, which shouldn't exist either. We unfortunately didn't know that the cadet ceremony was happening at the same time, and we had speakers at the podium, and so there was a lot of confusion, she told Seattle's Gay News. Some people, I did hear that they felt it was intentional, and I tried to intervene, and we tried to calm folks down and allow the graduates to go through. It really was just an unfortunate timing that they had already had that event happening, and we had this event happening. Keating said she understands how the attendees were alarmed by troopers marching directly at the crowd, considering queer history and policing. Many in the LGBTQIA+ community are traumatized, generationally or firsthand from experiences with law enforcement. And they said they didn't know how to react in the moment. One attendee told Seattle Gay News after processing how the cadets divided the group in half when a speaker was at the podium, she said she counted at least 15 WSP SUVs parked. She said it was a presence and marching in military cadence. It felt like a flex of power and control. Quote, "We have a long history of being targeted by law enforcement. Our movement started by, in large, as the result of being targeted by law enforcement, and that hasn't stopped," she said, noting how trans and queer people of color are disproportionately targeted by law enforcement. What do I even say to such stupidity? What do I even say to that? You have cadets who, again, look like kids. They're like, many of them like 22 years old. And they're marching in formation for a graduation ceremony that was planned months ahead of time. Months ahead of time. Again, the governor's going to be there. People are going to be there months ahead of time. And they got in the way of your beloved pride flag raising, and it's their fault. They're the problem. They intentionally marched in formation through your pride flag raising to threaten and flex their power and control over you. We've lost our minds. And it's the state patrol that has to apologize. The state patrol that has to apologize at the beginning of their graduation ceremony. What a memory for those cadets. What a great moment for those cadets. And why did the state patrol have to apologize? I don't think the guy speaking is the one who wanted to apologize, frankly. What do we know about Governor Bob Ferguson's mandate that he put out? We reported on it months ago for any state agency. Everything has to go through his office. Every press release, remember, this was internal memos, has to go through the governor's office. The governor's office forced them to apologize. And Chris Loftus with the Washington State Patrol essentially said the same thing. So the WSP chief met with Governor Ferguson to talk about what actions would be appropriate. And the chief reached out to event participants and advocates and personally apologized. Furthermore, Chris Loftus noted how WSP and the governor's office created the apology and posted it on WSP's social media accounts during the graduation. And here's the other little interesting note. If we're talking about who's to blame for this, and look, should they have coordinated better? Probably. It was probably weird for the cadets to have to march through a crowd of people that hate them and that think they're threatening and intimidating and flexing power. I'm sure the cadets didn't want to do that either. But it was kind of the planned route, you know? It's the route like 119 training classes before them have taken. And again, was planned months in advance. I can't help but just notice. So the governor was at attendance at the trooper graduation, but the governor was also in attendance at the pride flag raising. Here's a video that his team put out on social media.
Our government has to be there for individuals all across our state, even in good times, but especially when times are more difficult. It's not time to back away from that struggle. It's exactly the opposite. It's a time to lean into it. Diversity, equity, inclusion, Those are our values as a state. I'll say it again so our president can hear it. Diversity, equity, inclusion are our values as a state. Am I right? So we need to lean into that right now. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, both here to get this flag up, but even more importantly, as a community. And we're going to do that together. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yeah, first of all, he didn't seem that excited to be at the trooper graduation. He was much more excited to be at the pride flag raising. But isn't that interesting if we're talking about who's to blame and who should apologize? The governor has a schedule. He had 2 events on his schedule at roughly the same time, at roughly the same place. Should the governor not have known? Should the governor's staff not have known? Hey, maybe these two events are going to conflict with one another, Governor, because you're going right from the pride flag raising and you're going right in to the trooper graduation. So the governor's office makes the Washington State Patrol apologize, but maybe it's the governor's office who should have apologized, or maybe the alphabet mob should suck it up and get over themselves. Because not everything is about you. And if we're weighing which of the 2 events is more important, I think most sane people can agree that the trooper graduation probably takes precedence. And that maybe your little pride flag raising, which shouldn't even happen to begin with, could have happened later in the day. You know? That seems like a pretty easy thing to change the time of. Insane. These people are narcissists. Absolute narcissists. You don't even think, first of all, you think that they have to apologize to you, but that it was done intentionally. You think you're so important and your issue is so important that they intentionally organized all these cadets to march through it. Get over yourselves. Give me a break. Unfreaking believable. All right, coming up next, we always talk about ways that we can get people involved and active in the political process. We have one such way today. First, I have told you guys for several years now about my success on the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic program. I never get tired of hearing from people who I haven't seen in a while. Wow, Brandi, you look great. You look like you lost some weight. I was at an event over the weekend in Idaho that last time I spoke to this group was back in 2022. And I had people like, oh my gosh, look at this picture of us from the last event. And so we took new pictures because I'm like, yeah, you need a new picture with me. Why don't you just go ahead and delete that one and we'll just keep this new one. No, but in all seriousness, look, there's a ton of different ways and weight loss programs out there. I mean, the drugs and injections that people are taking. Not every program is right for every person. Certainly Eastside Weight Loss Clinic program requires you to really commit to it for at least 60 days. But in those first 60 days, I lost 30 pounds. I've lost an additional, probably 15 more pounds since then, so 45 pounds total. And for me, it's the only program I've ever tried that has worked long term. So check it out. Reach out to our friend Dr. Ryan Coogan and his team at eastsideweightlossclinic.com. Start with just a free 15-minute consultation so you can ask them questions and see if the program is right for you. Okay, as we know, did I say eastsideweightlossclinic.com? eastsideweightlossclinic.com. As you know, it was a disaster of a legislative session. They passed some of the most extreme policies that we have ever seen the Democratic majority in Olympia pass. Things like rent control, pay for striking workers, reparations, not to mention $9.5 billion in new taxes. Much of that that will fall on the working class. So, I've been covering the Washington State Legislature for 15 years. This is the most fringe, far left policies to ever come out of a legislative session, and certainly in my lifetime, but I would argue they've only gotten further left with time. So probably before that too. So our friends at Future 42 are out with, this is brand new, they haven't done this before, with a 2025 Washington State legislative scorecard. And I love this because we talk all the time on the show about we have to get people who aren't inherently politically active or passive news consumers. We have to give them really easy ways to get involved and see what's going on. And so as some of these elections, we have a few special elections for state Senate races this year because there were some people who passed away. There were people who left their Senate seats to run for higher office. And so as these things happen, I think this is an easy thing to send your friends and family who, again, might not be the most politically savvy, and just have them take a look at it. So you go to future42.org, and what they've done is they looked at bills that passed out of the legislature this year that center around the common sense areas where left and right should be able to agree. So areas like public safety, regulations, taxes, and good government. So they gathered, gosh, it was like more than 100 different bills that cover all of those topics. Future 42 took a position on them, so either pro or con. And Future 42 is very reasonable, so I'm assuming in most instances I'm going to align with what Future 42, what their position is, and I'm sure many of you will as well. And then what they did is they created these graphics where they looked at, so for instance, this is just for the House side of it. So it would have the state lawmaker, and it has all the bills listed on there and what the bills do. So for instance, on dismissing criminal charges, eliminating prison riot charges, school security improvements. And at the top, you'll see what Future 42's position was. And then you'll see a visual graphic of how all the various lawmakers voted on it. And it gives them sort of a scorecard. So I think it's an easy way for people and really for you and I to be able to go. And if we're stuck between two candidates on a ballot, or if we don't know much about one of the incumbents on our ballot, we can go there, we can take a look at how they voted on all of these really common sense, either, common sense bills or bills that were just wacko crazy, and see if we align with their views and their votes. So if you don't know who your state lawmakers are, Future 42 also has a tool for that. That's really easy. I use it all the time to send to people who are like, how do I figure out who my state lawmaker is? So if you go to Future 42, you can click on their tool and you just click on the map, basically. Here's where I live, and it'll give you a whole list of who your state lawmakers are. So you can compare it back at their legislative scorecard and see how they voted on some of these bills. So if you want to take a look at this, just sort of go through it, familiarize yourself with it so you can help. And this is the important thing. Like, I know you guys are informed, but I would recommend familiarizing yourself with it so you can send it to friends and family who might not be as politically savvy, so you can tell them how to use it as well. So go to future42.org, future42.org, and you can check out, it'll be, I think, a big banner across the top, check out their 2025 legislative scorecard. And while you're at future42.org, make sure you sign up for their newsletter so you can be alerted to opportunities to get involved, take action, and, go to protests. I know they organized some protests at the state capitol this year, so it's just a good way to get information about what's happening in Olympia. Okay, coming up next in our segment, Unbelievable, our friend Jonathan Cho, as well as another independent journalist named Cam Higbee, had an opportunity to confront Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell about his vilification of peaceful Christians, and the mayor looked quite uncomfortable with their questions. We'll talk about that in our segment, Unbelievable. First, everyone's heard of Doge. Have you heard of the Department of Retirement Efficiency? Well, you have now, because our friend Zach Abraham at Bulwark Capital is the Department of Retirement Efficiency. Him and his team specialize in managing risk. And right now, with the markets up and down and the tariffs and all of that, and if you're getting close to retirement, it might be a good time just to get a second opinion on your retirement portfolio to make sure that it's properly managed against risk. Because really, if your portfolio has been taking some massive swings, that's a pretty good indicator that it's not properly managed against risk. There's no harm at all in getting a second opinion. Zach and his team will take you through a Know Your Risk portfolio review. They'll talk about, the impact of things like tariffs and other economic policies on your retirement portfolio. And then they'll do a full review of how Bulwark is always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower cost, and give your retirement as much upside as possible. You only get one retirement. So get a second opinion. It's totally free. KnowYourRiskRadio.com, KnowYourRiskRadio.com. With that, let's get to our segment, Unbelievable. Okay, so as you know by now, there was this whole ordeal with peaceful Christian worshipers in the city of Seattle. So it started, was it weekend before last? They were having a religious kind of, I would call it a concert / protest rally in Cal Anderson Park. So yes, in the heart of Seattle's historic neighborhood, but they were there with their family Christian values, and Trantifa didn't like that very much, and so they tried to storm the stage. They threw things at the crowd. They did block news cameras. They got into altercations with police, as Antifa and Trantifa are known to do, and just generally wreaked havoc and disrupted what was an otherwise peaceful First Amendment event. So, of course, then Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell comes out and he vilifies the Christians, vilifies them as extreme, right-wing, anti-LGBTQ, and offered a little condemnation for Antifa. Like, oh, you know, we don't support violence. However, these people are evil bigots, right? And so in response, the Christians held another rally on the steps of the Capitol, again, very peaceful. And again, they were met with left-wing violence. And so it really was, I think, the mayor making a political calculation of, oh, Christians, bad, conservative, bad, traditional family values, bad. And I'm in the middle of an election, so I'm going to cater to the far left wing of my base, and I'm going to excuse left-wing violence. So there are two independent journalists who were covering this really extensively. Cam Higbee, I don't know... I'm not brave enough to do something like this, but Cam is at this event, public event for Mayor Bruce Harrell yesterday, and he goes up to, and you can disagree with the tactic, but he goes up to Bruce Harrell, I think, pretending like he wanted a selfie with Mayor Harrell, but instead he asked him about this.
Sir, why have you not condemned Antifa for their violence and Cal Anderson at City Hall yet? Why haven't you condemned Antifa for violence?
We could just have a talk. Say that again.
Why haven't you?
Say that again.
Why haven't you?
Because I don't know if I'm supposed to ask any questions on an official capacity. He's asking me some official questions.
Calls over his media guy.
About something. I didn't hear the question, so I'm not supposed to do that.
You're in a campaign capacity.
So I thought you just you said you wanted to.
I did say.
That was pretty disingenuous.
Why haven't you condemned Antifa for their violence at Cal Anderson and City Hall yet?
Yeah. I think I've made several statements about violence.
Well, you called the Christians far-right extremists who committed violence, but you haven't condemned Antifa who repeatedly assaulted people.
Why? You did say that violence is wrong. You read the statement.
You didn't say that violence from the left was wrong. You clearly talked about from a certain side, and that side wasn't committing violence.
You read the statement because
I have read it.
We say explicitly.
I have read it.
For violence.
Yeah. So again, you can disagree with the tactic. Maybe he should have just asked him a question. But you see, first of all, Mayor Bruce Harrell, you really think anyone wants to take a selfie with you? Like, that should have been your first indication. I mean, I don't know if that's something that people do often. Like, oh my God, I want a selfie with the mayor. I don't know. But, you know, he immediately, I don't know if I'm supposed to answer questions. Let me get my PR flacky over here. He's asking me a question. And, you know, I don't know if answer the question. Just answer the question. Like, you can be mad at him for pretending he wanted to take a selfie with you, but just say, yeah, of course, I condemn left-wing extremism. It's a simple question to answer, right? Why, condemn Antifa violence? Of course I condemn it. But he's making a political calculation. Oh my gosh. If he was going to condemn it, he would have condemned it to begin with. He would unequivocally. He wouldn't have put the blame and the onus on the peaceful Christians and labeled them in the headline extreme right wing. He doesn't want to answer the question. So he calls over his PR flacky to try to provide a buffer instead of just saying, look, dude, yeah, of course, but he knows what he did was wrong. I think there's a continuation of this video. Is this more with Cam Higbee?
I understand your question.
I think it's important that the constituents understand it. So I'm just looking for a condemnation specifically of left-wing Antifa violence at City Hall and Cal Anderson, not just for the Christians that were there.
Okay. So I don't categorize my statements on their political position.
Oh, you don't?
Mm-hmm. We made arrests for people that we thought were creating a harmful situation.
And you stand by those arrests?
Well, the judicial process will take care of that.
Okay.
I believe most of the process, a lot of the arrests were because, it went beyond the exercise of free speech and protesting. So, what I want is peace.
But if there is violence from the left, we condemn that.
I condemn violence in all of its forms.
All of its forms. Okay.
I certainly do.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate you talking. Have a good one.
I mean, was that so hard? You took like 3 minutes to just say, I condemn violence in all of its forms, although he won't bifurcate it and say specifically, yes, of course, I condemn violence from the left, which is where most of the political violence is coming from. And it's not even close. And for him to say, well, I don't characterize my statements by someone's politics. All you did was vilify the politics of the peaceful Christians. So he's full of it. Now, our friend Jonathan Cho did a similar thing, also confronted Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell and Jamie Hewson, who is the one, by the way, so that's the other guy in the video, he's the one who wrote the statement on the peaceful Christians that vilified them.
Mayor, why not just apologize to the evangelical Christians who are offended by your statements after you called them extreme right-wing?
I didn't call Jonathan. I didn't call anyone any names.
Yes, you
in
did.
Your statement.
So are you hoping to get votes from Antifa?
Mayor, have you been contacted by federal authorities? Have they contacted your office yet?
So just now, I'm going to take a picture.
All right. Mayor Harrell, have federal authorities reached out to your office?
Do you feel that Antifa is
What a
cowed
coward.
by your lack of condemnation?
Jamie, who wrote that statement, ultimately?
I'm not talking.
It has your byline on it, though.
Hey, I'm here in a volunteer personal capacity. I'm here in a volunteer personal capacity. I'm not taking your questions.
Yeah, but your name was on
Wow.
the byline with the headline,
Wow.
Extreme Right-Wing Rally.
But I'm here in a volunteer personal capacity.
But why don't you?
I'm not here
You're
to
the
answer
mayor's
official questions.
spokesperson, though, at all times. And why would the mayor triple down on that when he offended so many evangelical
God.
Christians?
Sir, why are you shaking?
The mayor
Find you a
offended
little-
evangelical Christians in the city.
Give me some space, brother.
A little jacked and very.
Jamie, you're the mayor's spokesperson. Can you at least tell us
Jonathan,
why
I'm
the
saying
mayor
no.
tripled down?
I'm
No?
not- I'm not interested in talking to you. I'm not here in a...
Is it a risk during a political
Wow,
year for the mayor
wow,
not to
wow.
address simple questions? He's
You're
made
good,
statements, but
man.
I'm trying to understand
Jonathan,
why
we're
he would
good, man.
triple down on offending evangelical
Wow.
Christians.
I got nothing to tell you.
Okay.
I'm
Wow.
interested in your questions.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Cowardice overfloweth. And again, just like answer if you can justify it, right? Why do so many politicians and their flackies put out statements they can't justify, do things they can't justify? If you had an ounce of integrity, if you meant what you said, then say, yeah, these were extreme right wing. They're contrary to the values of Seattle. They're anti-LGBTQ. I believe that. I'll stand by that. But they can't because they're cowards. And they're trying to find a position on this issue that won't turn away voters. And they care more about that than taking the right stand to not only condemn political violence, but to stop future violence by making it clear that you're going to take a hard line on it. And Mayor Harrell to say there, what did he say at the beginning to Jonathan Cho? Oh, I didn't label or I didn't insult anyone. No, you did. It's like, right, and Jonathan Cho put it up there, right there, the headline, extreme right wing, and they're not in line with the values of Seattle. And one of the things I've said about this is basically just the mayor saying that Christians aren't in line with the values of Seattle. Because the only thing that he points to paint them as extreme right wing and to paint them as out of line with the values of Seattle, the only two things are that he says that because they're traditional family values, because they believe in marriage is between a man and a woman, and they're pro-life. So those are pretty common, pretty mainstream Christian beliefs. So when he says that those are extreme right-wing positions that are out of line with, Seattle, then he's basically saying Christians don't belong in Seattle. And there's no place for Christian beliefs, which again, I would note, what about Muslims? The mayor would never say that about Muslims. He would never characterize Muslims as out of touch with Seattle. He would never characterize Muslims as bigots or extreme right wing. He would never do it. And I kind of wish Jonathan or Cam had asked him about that. Do you feel the same way about the Muslim community? They have far more extreme, if you look at traditional Muslims, views on LGBTQ plus and abortion. Far more extreme. Not all of them. Again, I think there's some differences. We can agree, in people's adherence to traditional religious values, but it's just insane. So credit to them for trying to hold Jamie and the mayor accountable, and what cowards they are. Stand by your statements. And if you can't stand by them, then you should apologize for them. Unbelievable. All right, we'll get to an interesting edition of Florida Report coming up next. If you are heterosexual, you're going to want to watch this one, okay? Oh, yes, it's Pride Month, but we're going to do a segment on heterosexuals. First, if you're thinking about selling your home, your very first call should be to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com. Look, fine, reach out to a few real estate agents. I always say, talk to your cousin's sister's ex-wife's brother's son. I don't know if that all makes sense. We all know somebody in our lives who works in real estate, but do they offer what Wes Jones and his team have to offer? Their marketing is impeccable. When you look at their listings side by side with other listings, you can see why Wes's listings get more eyeballs, which means more feet in the door, and also eventually means more offers on the table. So their marketing, I think, first and foremost. But also, if you have some cosmetic upgrades that need to be done to your home in order to get top dollar for it, that's the stuff Wes Jones and his team love doing. So they can come in, they can manage all those projects, take all the stress off it. You don't even have to pay for it till closing. So that takes the financial pressure off of you as well. So reach out to our friend Wes Jones. Start by going to sellwithwes.com. Use their home value calculator to see how much your home is worth. It might be worth more than you think. Sellwithwes.com, a better way to sell your home. All right, let's talk about heterosexuality, shall we, in today's edition of Florida Report.
It's not even controversial anymore.
People know in Florida their freedoms are going to be respected.
Miranda, hello.
Hello.
I hear you wanted to start the segment with you have a burning question for me. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really just been like heavy on my noggin. When and how did you decide you were straight?
Wow, it's quite a question to ask me on Pride Month. When and how did I decide I was straight? Actually, it'd probably be around the time when I was a wee child. The first time I saw Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wrestle on TV, I was like, that. I mean, the first time I set eyes on my husband, yes, then I was like, I'm for sure straight. No, this has to do with a Daily Wire story. This story's crazy. I knew you were going to ask me that question, obviously. Yeah. So first, give me some background here on that question.
Yeah, so this all came to light during, it's basically like a college prep course that Miami-Dade College offers Miami-Dade high school students. The class that they're taking is called Preparing Students for Success, and it's designed to help students reach and set academic goals, etc. So this questionnaire came up during one of these classes, and a kid, I guess, told his mother about it, and it's basically like a whole questionnaire about your heterosexuality.
Yeah.
And it's pretty detailed.
Let's go through the questions, but the Daily Wire reported on this, so we'll give them credit because they got the scoop from the mom. The headline, Have you considered changing? Florida teens asked to consider becoming gay in class assignment. Now, I think I know what the assignment was trying to get at, but go through the questionnaire. It says, read and consider each of the following questions. So what are a few of the questions?
A few of the questions are, what do you think caused your heterosexuality?
Again, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, yes.
Yes, which kind of leads into the question I asked you at the beginning of the show. Is it possible that being straight is just a phase you may grow out of? Is another question.
Let me think. No, because my husband's a super babe.
Is it possible that your heterosexuality stems from a neurotic fear of others of the same sex?
I am scared of Nicole. So, yeah, yes, maybe.
Yeah. To whom have you disclosed your straight tendencies, and why do you insist on showing off your heterosexuality? Leading into, why do straights place so much emphasis on sex? And this next one really bothered me, no matter how you twist it, which we'll get to at the end. There seems to be many unhappy heterosexuals. Techniques have been developed that might enable you to change your sexual orientation. Have you considered changing?
I get what they're getting at.
Yeah, the only question that I somewhat agree with on the heterosexual end, considering the menace of hunger and overpopulation, could the human race survive if everyone were straight like yourself? Because I do believe the world is overpopulated.
Oh my God. Obviously, I think, and without, knowing the brains behind this, I think these are probably questions historically that have been asked of gay people. You're like, oh, when'd you know? How do you can take conversion therapy and all of this. But it's clearly unhinged, should not be taught to high schoolers or any grade school children in Florida, and is a really backward way of trying to I don't know, expose the bigotry toward gay people that really doesn't exist anymore in this context.
It's a reverse psychology thing. And like you said, I think we're past this. This particular quiz was actually written by a gay rights activist back in the 1970s. So back then, I think that maybe when the gay community was really heavily scrutinized, they didn't have any rights. I can understand having this quiz, and then at the very end, it asks to replace heterosexual with gay, so that you can get this kind of idea of how ridiculous some of these questions are. But I mean, I've always believed that empathy is empathy. You either have sensitivities for people or you don't. And reverse psychology doesn't really do or replace the ability to give somebody the ability to put themselves in someone else's shoes. And kids these days, I don't think they struggle with this kind of stuff as much as past generations.
No, they absolutely don't. Like maybe if this was during the time of conversion therapy as some sort of accepted method to try to ungay people, sure. But this is just, again, it's like a fear-mongering exercise, right? And it's trying to instill hate and division and these sorts of things where I'm not saying they don't exist at all. Of course they exist, but they're not widespread. And we act as if, in the whole way society has been going on this issue and many others, is that they're getting worse. Racism is getting worse. Homophobia is getting worse. It's like, that's just not true at all. And instead of celebrate that progress as a society towards just loving our fellow human beings, we have to go backwards because that's just what we have to do. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, and if people have made being a victim their whole personality, where do they go when things are solved? When their problem is solved and they have to admit okay, so this isn't, nobody's after me.
Right.
Well, who are you now since you've played a victim your whole life?
You got to create
no matter
things.
Who you are.
So you identify as a furry and then say you're being discriminated against because you wear a tail and ears. It's just like, good God, it's a problem. All right, let's fit one more in just for fun. I kind of like this because, of course, there are negative implications of tariffs. We have always acknowledged that, although I think maybe the benefits will outweigh the costs eventually. But there is a good upside to them for local fishermen in Florida.
Yeah, so because of the tariffs, a lot of frozen fish that restaurants and grocery stores they sell is from other countries. It's frozen, shipped over, but now because of the tariffs, the cost of those is skyrocketing and it's slower to be delivered. So a lot of local fishermen are experiencing more business from not just, people coming to them, but also restaurants and companies like Whole Foods are looking for more locally sourced fish products here in the state of Florida.
Love that. Love that for those guys who are always fishing off the bridges. They got someone to sell their fish to. I think that's great. And, in Washington State, I think by and large, certainly with salmon and that stuff, we're very proud of our locally sourced fish. But, there are types of fish and that's one of the things I always love about coming to Miami is we're a very fish heavy sort of, I guess, for restaurants, and seafood is big here, but it's a totally different kind of seafood, right? And so, let's get some of that tropical fish from right here in the United States, in Florida, and have it sent here as opposed to, getting it from overseas frozen.
Yeah. And I hope that that's something that not just the coastal cities and states will experience. I hope that the interstates will decide to buy American caught fish. And even if it's frozen, fresh or frozen, it'd be nice to see. I think that's the point of these tariffs they should have been done years and years ago, so we're not feeling such the heavy implications of them. But eventually, supporting local businesses and American businesses is, I think, the whole point. So I love to see a little story like this.
Yeah, and you and I remember when I first started eating sushi. I was a college student in Nebraska. Probably not the best place to be introduced to sushi, but I can tell you I would have rather had that sushi flown in from Florida than flown in from wherever the hell it was flown into. One time, I had a China buffet when I was at a state speech. I remember this because I'll never forget it because it's seared into my mind. State high school speech championships outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We went to a China buffet, which, as you know, was very popular back in the day. And they had these little sushi-looking things I'd never seen before. You know what the meat was? Nicole's like, what? It was a cut-up hot dog. It was a cut-up hot dog. And I was like, ooh, what's this? Fine, I'd never really had sushi, so as far as I'm concerned. But now I realize the horror of that. Anyway, all right, Miranda, good stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good weekend.
It's not even controversial anymore.
People know in Florida their freedoms are going to be respected.
Yeah, hot dog sushi. When you're just a teenager in Minnesota, you don't really know better. All right, before I get to
eat that kind of sushi.
Yeah, you probably would. You don't like a lot of different meats. Nicole's very picky.
No seafood.
Before I get to our daily subscriber show poll, oh my God, the Elon Trump beef is unraveling. And things are unraveling. I don't like mommy and daddy fighting. So just some context. So Elon leaves Doge, right, at his regularly scheduled time. Couple days later, he tweets out, "I'm sorry, I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination." So dunking on Trump's big, beautiful spending bill. So Trump comes out today. He responds. He's not angry at Elon, but he's sort of confused. I think his feelings are hurt a little bit. And now Elon is going crazy. This is happening right now on X. Elon is going nuts on X. So he's retweeting like Donald Trump's old tweets about like out of control spending. But then he just said, oh my gosh, time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the reason they haven't been made public. Have a nice day, Donald Trump. Which, oh my God, why do you all of a sudden hate Donald Trump?
I mean,
you were
to
just
this extent?
his best buddy. What? Something else had to have happened here. It can't just be because of the big, beautiful bill. I don't understand it. And plus, we knew Donald Trump was in the Epstein files, but he's not accused of wrongdoing. His name was just in some other, people who hung around. So it's not something we didn't know. What is going on with Elon? There has to be something else with this. I don't like it. It's not helpful to the movement and what everybody's trying to accomplish. It seems like somebody's feelings got hurt.
And Trump, we talked, or we saw the video of Trump talking about it this morning, and he's very calm. He's very like, calm. We were friends. I'm sorry we're not anymore. He
did accuse Elon of not liking the bill because it undoes the EV mandate credits, but Elon's been against those anyway, so that doesn't really make sense. I don't know what's going on. I don't like it. I don't like them fighting.
Unproductive.
We do have a new episode of Doge Watch coming up about it tomorrow, so we'll go over some of the drama. Super unproductive, and I don't know, now everybody's gonna hate Elon? I don't know. So I asked you guys about this beef in our daily subscriber show poll, but more so, this was before the whole, he's gone unhinged in the last 2 hours since I put out this poll.
It's just constant tweets.
Yeah, but I asked you guys if you agree with Elon Musk's characterization of the big, beautiful bill as outrageous pork-filled congressional spending. Nicole, do you agree with that characterization or his criticism of the big, beautiful bill?
You know what? I probably don't know enough to categorize it like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm not going to take ownership of knowing it enough.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's probably cuts that can be made. I think I don't know.
I agree with him. I think the fact that they sent immediately after Elon's initial criticism $9 billion back in rescission cuts is proof of sort of their acknowledgement that they knew that it was a little bit pork filled. But in a lot of people, 76% are saying in our subscriber poll that they agree with Elon Musk about it, compared to 24%. E said, we have always been lied to about the budget. Musk looked into the abyss and it looked back at him. The politicians' government will never stop putting our tax dollars into their pockets, no matter who is in charge. Yeah. And let's not act like only Democrats got us into this situation. Republicans got us into this situation as well. Andy says, although I haven't looked at it, knowing DC, I tend to agree with Elon's assessment. And I think there's some built up frustration there. I think Elon was led to believe that Doge would have all this power that ultimately Doge didn't have. It was really amounted to sort of suggestions. And when they didn't act on his suggestions, he's probably like, well, why did I walk away, put my business and Tesla in the crosshairs,
go through
for
all
something,
of this.
right, that you didn't really intend on doing. So I think that's probably a little bit of the frustration and anger that you're seeing from him right now. Let's see. Kamala Venable says, I think this is Elon's strategy to try to distance himself from Trump, to try to save face with the public and maybe take some of the pressure off the business he's associated with. But now he's going to pee off Trump supporters. So
that's what I said at first too, but now it's getting personal. So now I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It was probably strategy. Like now we can just distance ourselves a little bit from Trump, and Trump was in on it. And now, no, not if you're going to attack.
Well, and then Elon just said, he just put out a poll. Is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle? Dude, you were totally on team, wore the hat. Trump was right about everything.
2 days ago.
Totally on team Trump. And now you're acting like Karine Jean-Pierre when she came out and wrote a new book and announced she's an independent. It's like, Are you though? So this is weird. I don't know. Elon's acting unhinged.
But this is what all those girlfriends of his have been saying, or wives, or whatever they are, baby mamas, have been saying for a while. So I think we're getting a little taste of what they saw.
Maybe erratic
and vengeful.
Yeah. For the record, I don't mind him criticizing Donald Trump. If he has a criticism of the big, beautiful bill, which some Republicans in Congress agree with him on, and we need to stop spending as much as we're spending, That doesn't bother me at all. I don't care if somebody goes against Donald Trump, who on other things is friendly with him. But now it's getting weird,
vengeful.
personal, vengeful, and not helpful. Yeah. Not helpful. I don't understand what's going on. So, wow, I don't like mommy and daddy fighting. It's really disappointing me. Let's see here. I wanted to read a couple responses on locals. Sorry, give me one sec here. Annette says, all bills that come out of Washington seem to be pork-filled. Has there ever been a bill that was just for a single subject? Let's see. Gabriel says, Brandi, the BBB, the big beautiful bill is not perfect. Well, golly gee, look at Congress. So scuttle it to ensure tax increases, stymie economic growth, no steps forward on the president's agenda, yet 2 steps back. Musk's petulance is short-sighted, not strategic, sad. Yeah, I gotta agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, Trump did not attack him in his little spiel.
No, he was very... I mean, he seemed like his heart was broken a little bit.
A little bit.
I thought I finally had a friend.
It was like Dad was disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, I feel bad for Donald. You know, he made a friend and now his friend has turned on him. It's very sad, as everyone does in the swamp, turns on Donald Trump. All right. We have 2 subscriber shout outs we're going to do next, followed by some comments in our closing sanity check. But first, if you haven't done it already, take the First Mark Challenge. So many undivided viewers and listeners now work with First Mark Insurance for all of their insurance needs. And there's a great reason why. You can save a lot of money and they take all this stress and questions out of the complicated insurance process. Our friend Brock Heward, former UW quarterback and sports radio host, also took the First Mark Challenge.
The word that comes to my mind is a word I use a lot on my sports show, and that is connective tissue. It's important in team building. It's important as players in a locker room to be connected to others. And when it comes to insurance, it's so complicated. It's so stressful. You just don't even want to deal with it. And that is where the connective tissue of having a pro, having a broker, having a partner, and most of all, having a teammate like First Mark Insurance, it was the best connective tissue we could find.
That's some deep shit, Brock. Wow, making the sports analogy. I love it. FirstMarkInsurance.com. Just schedule some time to take the First Mark Challenge. It's a phone call, maybe a half hour. If you're really complicated, an hour, but you go over your current insurance, talk to them about your insurance needs. They go out, they shop the market. It'll take them a couple weeks to do that to make sure they get you the best possible options. They'll come back and you can decide whether you want to move all your insurance over to First Mark or not. So FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you. Nicole, you said we have a Truth Social post from Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, he posted Elon was wearing thin, in quotes. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew I was doing for months, and he just went crazy.
Then
it's not even that bad.
No, it's not, but that makes Donald Trump look like a liar too, because he also said, oh no, we didn't ask Elon to leave. This was his scheduled time to leave, which is the case. They'd always said he was going to leave at that time at the end of May. So now they're all looking like children, all this momentum, all this good stuff, and you have to behave like stupid little children. It's just ridiculous.
No, he also wrote, the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it.
Oh my gosh,
now he's gonna start
you two, you're ruining everything. You're ruining everything.
Totally.
All right, as you guys might know, we occasionally do subscriber shout outs because we have a subscriber tier called Undivided Ultra Subscribers, which is $50 a month. And one of the benefits is you get a shout out if you ask for it, if you want it on the show. So we've got a couple good ones today that actually are pretty interesting. Can we start with Jeff in Clallam County Watchdog? Sure. So our friend Jeff, who runs Clallam County Watchdog, wanted to use his shout out to give a shout out to the work they're doing holding government accountable, which I think is great. So he says that Clallam County Watchdog is growing. People are very interested in the work that they're doing. They just passed 3,000 subscribers, a 264% increase in just 12 months. Man. Wow, it's just pretty good. You got to tell us what you're doing. They launched a podcast. They featured a 13-year-old sex trafficking survivor. They were the first to report the murder of a beloved elderly artist during this year's irrigation festival. And they said they've got overwhelming support. They opened Town Road, which was a road that had been closed that the community was all up in arms about. And he says common sense is making a comeback in Clallam County. So if you want to see what they're doing, you can go to ccwatchdog.com, ccwatchdog.com. So that's from Jeff and his husband, Doug. And we should know our friend, Elliot the Emu. So we went out and visited. This is like, what, a year or two ago now? Jeff and Doug at their beautiful home in Clallam County. right there on the Strait of Juan de Fuca.
Yeah.
And they have they rescue some animals. They have a whole array of animals,
He's
including
living my dream, really.
Elliot the emu. What is with my outfit in this picture, first of all?
I think that you have it pulled up so it doesn't get
Maybe.
in the mud.
Get in the
maybe.
mud. Elliot the emu was the sweetest emu.
Oh my gosh.
So I was happy to get an update on not only Clallam County Watchdog, but also Elliot the emu, who's living his best life.
Oh, he is. He
in Clallam
entertains
County.
the other animals. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so that's our first Undivided Ultra subscriber shout out, which if you have a business, this is a pretty cheap way to get some advertising on Undivided.
Right. And also I told Jeff, I was like, can we mention we stayed in your little cottage? Because he loves that city more than anybody. He grew up there and he inherited his mom's place and they have a little cottage.
Beautiful.
And it's so cute. And we were able to stay in
they
it.
Airbnb it.
They Airbnb
Yes.
it. So look on Airbnb for a little cottage and maybe look for Elliot.
Yeah, and they let you go out if you stay at the Airbnb and
can
talk
play
to
with
see
the
their animals and stuff. Totally cool.
Yeah.
All right, the second one is from our friend Abby London, who's a musician. She's so funky.
She's spunky.
She's so funky and spunky. I love it. And she does a lot of issue-based music.
Yep.
So she's like, okay, I want to use my shout out to tout my newly released song, Decoration Slave. Let me explain it a little bit before you play it. So Abby and all her handles, by the way, Abby London Music. Her tagline is music for people who have questions. I like it. This one's really offbeat. So Decoration Slave, she says it can be found on all streaming platforms. Her website, YouTube. She says it's about the super light topic of forced labor. She says her first choice, by the way, is for people to listen to it on Spotify. Second is YouTube. She said, I was inspired to make this during the month of June when I was in a store getting pummeled with an onslaught of plastic rainbow items. I was questioning if all the rainbow stuff is being made with slave labor. I was thinking how ironic that a celebration of love and acceptance, or what started off as one, is now most likely fueled by slave labor. So let's listen to a little, this is a deep topic. Let's listen to an excerpt of her song, Decoration Slave. Turn it up a little bit. I'm a slave to decorations.
You make everything I crave.
Oh, I like that. It's moody.
I am the one who has it made. You make my party favors, prizes at the arcade. You make my beads in February, little or nothing I pay.
Well, that's kind of sad thinking about it might actually be forced labor making all our party goods.
I hope not.
All right, so that is an excerpt of Decoration Slave from our friend Abby London. You can check it out streaming. Go to abbylondonmusic.com, abbylondonmusic.com, and maybe think about that next time you buy, I don't know, 100,000 strings of beads for $1 and ask yourself, why does this only cost $1? Probably because it's forced labor. So thank you both for being ultra subscribers and supporting our show, and that is your yearly shout out that you get for doing so.
Maybe not if it's American made. Maybe another reason to go American made.
Maybe look if it's American made. But I'll tell you, we bought some red, white, and blue necklaces for some events, and they were pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Pretty sure a little Chinese kid made those.
Party City's closed now. So.
Oh, okay. All right, that's where we got them. All right, let's get to some comments. Milkman, Brandi, in no other country, if your mom comes over the border and births you, do you get citizenship? Is that true? There's got to be other countries that do that. Birthright citizenship?
Trump says it like that, so there must be some aspect of it
that's unique to the United States. Interesting. Okay, I don't know the answer to that, but if you say it, I'm just going to take it as truth. Darren Simmons, I hate this state more and more every day, which is really sad to say. Change needs to happen. I agree. That State Patrol video pissed me right off.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Oh my God, I was so mad watching that this morning. Like the whole celebration ruined. The whole ceremony ruined because the governor forced you to apologize for something you shouldn't have had to apologize for.
And
Ridiculous.
you know what? They probably put that flag raising thing at that time slot so that he could just 2-for-1 it, right? They probably moved the flag time to
For
something more convenient for the governor.
Yeah, I can absolutely
I'm sure
see
that's
that.
why he was in this let's save it mode, because it's my fault, but not.
You know what? I'm going to go with that. I like that theory. Kathy Gamble, the American flag is the only flag that should be raised, and the state flag. I'm fine with both of them, but let's just keep it simple so we're not devolving into this weird let's raise flags about sexuality. Sergeant Pickles, if they stopped at LGB, there wouldn't be any problems. We actually have our episode of Sundays with Subscribers this week is fascinating. So we've got a Democrat who is trying to rally part of an organization trying to rally reasonable Democrats against some of this fringe radical gender ideology. And then we've got a lesbian who used to live on Capitol Hill, who's speaking out about how insane pride has become and the tie for gender identity to LGB. And so it's just this fascinating. You have people who are part of these, the Democratic Party, part of the alphabet mob, so to speak, who are starting to wake up and try to rally their friends to bring back common sense. So it's a fantastic episode of Sundays with Subscribers, if I do say so myself. Steve Pohl, sounds like Governor Bob's scheduler really screwed up. Sideshow should be the one to apologize to both groups or resign. I agree. Wouldn't it be nice if it was just like, hey, will you resign over this? And he's like, yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. Greg Olakis, Brandi Kruse, question, can we run an initiative to repeal mail-in voting in the state? Can we use that process for actual fair elections? You could. Somebody would have to do it. I don't know if it would be successful. I'm sure they'd find some sort of legal reason to invalidate it because that's what Democrats do to any initiative they don't support. But I don't know why you couldn't run an initiative on that. Although the irony of that would be that people would get a mail-in ballot to decide whether they wanted to repeal mail-in voting. Yeah. Cynthia Martin, $10 super chat. This raises my question that I asked during the subscriber super chat last Friday. Is Washington State too far gone to be fixed at this point? Is the damage too much to be corrected? No, I don't believe that. I can't believe that, because if I believe that, then why am I doing this job? Sophia, I really hope us Christians stand up for our rights, because this is not okay, and we're not going to stand down and let people bully us. I agree, and we need religious people to be activated. I mean, I think more Jewish people are starting to speak up for themselves, get politically active because of everything going on, and because of what happened in Seattle. I think Christians as well. Michael J., thank you, Democrats, for destroying all that is good while bathing yourselves in human proclivities and hypocrisy. Upper Sky DJ, Elon was busy gathering data and information for his new AI systems. What better way to go for all the information in the U.S. than to be in the U.S. government? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This
that
is just
kind of does make me nervous now that I think about it.
Right. Like, what was he in there doing? Are we the fools for trusting him?
To turn on
Did
him
he
that
pull
quickly?
one over on us?
Whoa.
Maybe. Wow, I have a lot to think about.
I have a lot
to think about. I was also asked if we're doing a Friday episode this week. No, we're not. We did it last week knowing we'd have a short week this week. And Nicole, who just jet sets all over the place.
I try.
Literally, was in Texas last weekend, has a vacation this weekend. And so she's flying out after the show today. So no, we will not have a Friday show. But again, we'll have a fantastic episode of Sundays with Subscribers on Sunday. It's a really killer one.
And a twofer.
And I am sure that I'm going to get a lot of hate for this episode from the alphabet mob.
Right.
I'm sure I'll be protested on Monday. I don't know.
I think they were already planning on protesting you this weekend anyway.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure they hold a anti-Brandi protest somewhere privately in their own homes. I don't know. All right. With that, speaking of the Elon beef that's suddenly come up, let's get to our closing sanity check. Well, look, we kind of picked this one before Elon went off the rails, so I'm not sure how much I agree with Senator John Kennedy now. I do love a good Senator John Kennedy, but he was asked about this sort of pushback that Elon has against the big, beautiful bill, and here's what he said.
What caused inflation? Joe Biden caused inflation because his favorite type of spending was more. And all that money sloshing around in the economy created demand, and inevitably, we had inflation. If we reduce spending, as Mr. Musk is trying to do, then that will reduce fiscal stimulus, and it will lower prices. That's just basic economics, and I'm a big Musk supporter. I think he's doing an extraordinary job. He deserves a personal pan pizza or a nice hat or a cold beverage or something. I don't think he needs money, but I'm all for what he's doing. Is it a little messy? Yes, but remodeling is messy. But I think he's absolutely correct.
Little messy, maybe it's gone beyond a little messy at this point. We chose that for me to be able to say, I don't think a little disagreement is bad. I agree with Elon Musk about the big, beautiful bill. Maybe his view of it is a little bit too simplistic, but now he's kind of lost me with his unhinged X rant. Hasn't lost me completely. I think there's been some hurt feelings, but maybe we can get everyone back on board, a little kumbaya moment. Someone can bring the right, the factions of the right back together, just when we're doing so good. That has been your closing sanity check. That has been today's episode of Undivided. Again, a short week. Thank you for bearing with us as we have some adjustments to our schedule, but we will move forward to the regular episode, as always, of Sundays with Subscribers. If you have not become a subscriber already, you've got 6 more days to take... 6 more days to take advantage of our 30% off promo. So go to patreon.com/undivided. That's patreon.com/undivided. Type in the promo 300, number 300. You'll get 30% off your entire first year of Undivided, which, if you've been a holdout, I think is a killer deal. Probably the best deal we're ever going to offer, honestly. Nicole, fly safe. Have a good little trip to Las Vegas, which I don't even know what you're doing there. You got a concert. You got a
Kenny at the Sphere.
Oh, of course you are. Yep. Buckle bunny. Buckle bunny. Anyway, that's it. Okay, appreciate all of you. Special thank you to all of our newest subscribers. See you Sunday. New episode of Doge Watch out tomorrow, and then see the rest of you on Monday at noon.